Coming up on today's episode of the Video Marketing Toolkit.
If you've got an idea and it's no good, fail fast, then you're not wasting your money or resources.
Having that win-win-win mindset, perfect for podcasting, and why a lot of businesses should really start looking more into podcasting anyway.
It was always about the audience, making sure that they're getting value out of it and making sure I understand who's looking.
Even if one video is a flop, you can't let that put you down because everyone's forgot about it next week anyway. And for anyone who doesn't know, so this is a YouTuber plaque, so they're quite popular.
It's been a lot like people are always asking me, well, what's the secret recipe, and the secret recipe.
Produced by Video Formula.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Video Marketing Toolkit. I'm your host, Dan Dennis, and this is the podcast where we talk to business owners and experts from different industries. We pick their brains for all things business, marketing and video, and hopefully in the next 45 minutes to an hour, you would have learned something that you can take away and use in your own business. I learn a lot from these chats, so I know it will be valuable for you guys listening. And as well as hosting the podcast, I am a video first marketer. That means I create marketing strategies that are led by high quality video for business owners. In today's episode, I'm joined by somebody who supports entrepreneurs and helps business owners to scale. He's recently hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and has been awarded his silver YouTube plaque. It's so exciting. And he's been creating videos and podcasts to launch his new support program, Vision to Venture. Welcome to the studio, Neil Betts. How you doing, Neil?
I'm good, thank you, Daniel. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I feel like I'm being interviewed by an expert in the field.
Well, I feel like we're both experts. I haven't got a YouTube plaque to show for it, and when you showed it me earlier, I was taken away a little bit because it's almost like one of those things that you see loads of people have, and then even as a kid, you're like, oh, I want to be a YouTuber and get that plaque one day, and you've actually got one.
Hey, I'm not sure I'm going to get it home, am I?
No, in fact, it might have already gone missing, I think. But no, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I really appreciate you coming, taking the time out to come and speak to me. Again, we're in a new setup. I've made it as green as possible, so lovely. I hope you're comfortable.
Yeah, it's lovely.
But so today, let's start out by people at home who may not know who you are. Would you like to introduce yourself and let them know a little bit more about yourself?
So my name is Neil Betts, and I'm the director of a company called Go True North here in the UK, and I was the former founder of the same company over in Australia that's still in business today. That's been running for 13 years over there. So
awesome! How exciting! So speaking to you before, and speaking for you today, you have so much experience in so many different areas, right? And I feel like you've gone on such a journey to get to the point that you are today. I want to go right back to the beginning. How did it all start, and where did your career really start off?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you look back, because I'm sort of at the end of my career journey right now, and you look back, and there are things and events that happen along that journey that influence where you are today. So I think my biggest influence all those years ago was actually when I was a kid was my dad. My dad was a big DIY electrician, jockey, civil engineer.
Wow!
And over the years, I used to do a lot of things with my dad. But when I left school, I had no idea what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be. And at the time, it was considered you get a job and a job's for life. You're one place. And I was successful at winning an apprenticeship with the Central Electricity Generating Board, who obviously run the power generation industry. And I did a 4-year apprenticeship on control and instrumentation. And that really led on to basically a 20-odd year career within the power industry where I sort of grew from an apprentice to a fitter, repairing temperature probes and pressure probes, to being lucky enough to get an assistant engineer's job, and then I got into control systems, and before I knew it I was a maintenance manager at Rugeley Power Station. And a turn of events in all of that, over 20 odd years in the career, I went in for an interview for the plant manager's job and found myself on a 3-month secondment to Australia.
Wow.
Yeah, so like the 10 pom-pom come out.
So that's crazy. So I've got this right in that, so you was born in the UK,
Yep.
and then you was electrician, career as an electrician, and then as part of that job as becoming a manager, you went to Australia.
That's right. I'm not going to say electrician, control and instrumentation.
Two different things.
Yeah. Sorry,
Okay,
electricians
sorry,
out there. Yeah, control and instrumentation, and sort of went into I got lucky into the engineering side and started to learn control systems and did a few huge projects. But what I found over that career before I left the UK is that I used to end up with all the projects that were difficult to problem solve, and I didn't know it then, but this is what's led me to where I am, and the business is set up around solving problems. But I was given the job in the UK at the time, this is sort of mid-90s, there was new control systems being put in, which were all computerised. So it was going away from switches and knobs and to... Actually, the one we put in the end was a video wall with 7 monitors,
that's like all
video
digital,
projectors,
basically.
And totally digital. But and in the UK, there was a company who was doing that around most of the power stations, who seemed to win all the contracts. But they were doing it in an outage, so you'd shut the plant down for 11 weeks, rip out the control room, put the new control systems in. But they presented me with the problem as an engineer. We want to do it without an outage now. You can have an outage on that unit, but this one, no. So that became a huge problem-solving, exercise with a whole team of people. We put our thinking caps together and found a way to actually do that. We did end up having outages for certain parts, but it was very piecemeal, very small and targeted. So all my career, I've been faced with problems like that.
And then you're the problem solver.
Yeah, so I've had construction projects within the power industry. We want to upgrade that precipitator, which is a thing that collects all the dust at the back of the power station. We want to make it another X cubic metres bigger. You can have an outage for this one. Oh, great. Just cut the top off and weld a new bit on and we're away. But that one, we're not giving you an outage. Oh, okay, that's a problem. That's a problem. How do we do that? And we ended up building a piece on the side and then took one weekend where we just cut a hole in it and pushed it through and rebalanced it, and away we went.
Figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, so I had a lot. So my whole career has been about solving problems, and that's got... I'm going to say it's got nothing to do with business, but you know that's not true.
Yeah.
Business is always faced with
transferable skills.
Absolutely.
Everything down to communicating with people, explaining to people what's going on, to actually solving the problem and doing the task. Like, it all connects, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So how old were you when you went to Australia?
So I left for Australia in 2006.
2006.
So I was sort of in my almost 40. In fact, I had my 40th and 50th birthday over there.
Oh, wow.
So I left on a 3-month secondment, not knowing what that journey would.
Oh, so it was only for 3 months?
3 months, and it was without my wife, so she ended up... I remember sitting in the summer house saying... I've been offered a 3-month secondment in Australia, and it was like, yes. But it's like just for me.
It's just me at the moment. A mix of emotions through your head, like, well, how do we solve, and more problems to solve at home as well, right? Like, how do we handle these next few months as well? But a very exciting opportunity, I imagine.
And it was amazing. And the job out there was to look at a power station that was eating a lot of money from the corporate company, and millions, and wanting to see what we could do to optimise that asset. Something I'd never done before. I've been in maintenance all my life, but that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, a whole different kettle
and
of fish.
I flew into Dubai and met up with 2 other guys in the business lounge of the Dubai airport for Emirates. One was an ex-plant manager he was actually in Pakistan. He'd come out. He's a British guy who was the manager at a power station in Pakistan, and a guy from a head office in London who used to do all the financial modelling.
Wow.
And we ended up in this little motel in this little...
Almost like the assemble of the Avengers, isn't it? Bringing
in this little town called Traralgon in Victoria in Australia. And I remember those first few days feeling totally overwhelmed, having these 2 amazing people. But what they became is great coaches and teachers, and I realised then that, well, there was a whole skill set that I could bring along that would complement their skill set, that allowed us to really pull that business apart and unpack it, and then we flew back to London and presented the case in London. And they then said, well, we need somebody to go over there now and implement all these changes. And that became the journey for me and my wife. So we that was sort of just before Christmas when that decision was made that we were going to be, I was the person to go back out there.
So at this point, once you'd like laid out all these plans for all this change, they were like, well, now we need someone to actually do it.
Yep. Nice idea, but you're going out there to make it happen.
Kind of literally like digging your own hole to get into, really. But,
Yeah,
a great
really,
hole to be in, though, right?
And they said you got 20 days to get out there.
Oh, wow. So you've got to do
Straight
it
over
and you've got to
Christmas.
decide.
So I remember going home and saying to Rachel, and she, this was at Christmas, but in the September of that year, she just been successful in getting a deputy head teacher's role.
Oh, wow.
She's in teaching, Rachel, in education. And I remember saying to her, this whole Australia thing we've been on, the journey I've been on, do you fancy going out there for 3 years? Because they've offered me a 3-year contract out in Australia. I said, that'd be great. When? I'll need some time to prepare.
Yeah,
and she
think
was like,
about it.
I'm saying 17th of January, you've got to be out there. And it happened, 17th of January.
Wow.
A team of removals people turned up at home. We'd post-it noted all the stuff we wanted to take with us, and we just flew out there. Some stuff was air freighted, and 3 months later, a whole heap of stuff that came by sea.
Almost like the Christmas turkey hadn't even gone cold and you'd already out there. Wow. So things like that, when you literally so companies almost paying you to work out in another country, do they pay for moving everything over, or is that something you've got to do?
As those expat contracts, I only know the company I worked for, which was a company called International Power at the time. And they paid to move us out there.
Okay, cool.
Obviously, I had a salary out there. They paid for your accommodation and all the bills and everything that went with that. The only thing we had to find is food. So they're quite affluent contracts, but they and different companies do this differently today. They pay a thing called hypothetical tax.
Okay.
So you carry on paying tax at your UK rate no matter where you work around the country. But obviously I'm out the country, so I wasn't classed as once you're out 180 days
Work
at the time.
there,
You're not classed as a resident for tax purposes. So the company collect that tax, but then they use it to fund your tax position in Australia, because I then became...
You've got to pay the Australian tax then, right?
So, but if I was in the Middle East where there's no tax, I don't get the benefit of that. So the way it works was really good, because it really meant that no matter where you worked in the world as an expat, you're tax neutral, really. You're paying the taxes if you were in the UK.
No, that's brilliant, yeah, because I imagine the stress of a move, thinking, how do I afford to ship my entire home over there?
Yeah, they did it all.
That's brilliant.
The company over there found accommodation for us and took that all on. It was smooth. Our stuff turned up and I just put it in the house. It was all really smooth, and part of that package was flights back home every year, so you were looked after as an expat.
Oh wow, that's brilliant. So the 3 years you were there then, was it only 3 years, or was it a little bit longer? Did it turn out being a bit longer than that?
17 years later.
Wow. So 17 years. Was it what was your what happened at the end of those 3 years then?
So I was in there as maintenance manager, doing a lot of really, really good stuff. Starting off working on fixing plant issues with the plant, and then that went to issues with process, and then that went on to issues with people, and very unionised and very different out there, the culture. But at the end of those 3 years, I was offered another 3-year contract, and to go and work out of Melbourne at the head office and look at supply chain optimisation across all the assets in Australia. Because where we were, we had 2 power stations in Victoria, but out in Western Australia there was a power station there. We got a wind farm and a gas powered station in Adelaide. So they wanted to just optimise the supply chain, and it's really interesting when you look back, and this is a massive corporate business or international business, but locally in Australia, in one part of Australia, we'd have a contract with a national supply chain company, and they'd sell me this widget at £5, and I'd go out to Western Australia and the same widget was £8. I'd go to Adelaide and the same widget was £7. And that's the work that I started to do. Started to look at how you optimise that.
How do you make the most of that rather than
talking to that one supplier, no, let's talk about a global contract, not having all these little contracts. So it became a real interesting, really interesting piece of work. Again, problem solving.
And that's what I was going to say. It sounds like that, especially optimization to efficiency, really ties well into sort of what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So which is Go True North more so, I guess. And when did Go True North start? Did that start in Australia?
Yeah, that started in Australia in 2013. So I actually I did the six or so years over there in the corporate world, and then had an event in my life that changed, not necessarily who I am, but changed my thinking. And I ended up with depression. I just had a young daughter, and I was working away from home a lot in that environment. And there were some events that happened corporately that weren't really aligned with my values, and I sort of started to take them on, and found very quickly that I was hitting a bit of a...
Grind you down quickly, you're missing your family
I didn't realise all of the effect that environment was having on me, and I ended up breaking down and took some time out. And it was during that time of depression, which I've talked about, a few times with different organisations, but I was sort of out of action for 6 or 7 months in terms of working, and had support. Eventually, I actually fought the support to begin with. The problem solving never came out then. I think
that's often it does happen as well when you're in that state of mind, right? When you almost sort of see that there is no going back, and you don't want to disadvantage anyone else, and you really do get stuck in that hole of no, it's not going to do it. You become so negative, don't you? About everything.
And I'd got a lot of people working for me at the time, and I was like the umbrella, stopping all that noise affecting them, and so that's how it had the impact on me and my family. So in the end, I started problem solving on myself and got myself some therapy. I had medication, and over those 6 or 7 months, I started to think, well, is this corporate world really who I am? And it's interesting because prior to that, I'd had other businesses, side hustles.
Okay.
I opened up a computer shop many years ago, and had a guy running a computer shop with me. And
so you'd always done little bits and bobs on the side and stuff like that.
Nearly went bust with that. Nearly lost the house with that.
Oh wow!
Unfortunately, I'd still got my job as well, so that was all good. So I sort of spent that time through the depression thinking. You do a lot of thinking about who and what you wanted to be. And when I first went to Australia and got there in the maintenance manager's role, the first guy I actually recruited, and it took a long time to recruit this guy because he was really nervous about jumping from the contractor side to the company, because it's quite affluent in the contractor side, because he was going round Australia earning good money. And I convinced him to come and join us, and a guy called Chris Alford, and Chris was a good friend. And I remember we went out one night in the early days of employing him and had a few drinks, and he said, there's a massive gap in project management. You know that. So, yeah, one day me and you ought to sign, because I'd worked with him, and he was really looks at detail well and plans. And he said, one day we should start a project management company. We should have a crack one day. I said, yeah, one day. And, of course, that one day came through depression. And I remember picking up the phone to Chris towards the back end of depression, because when I was going through it, I shut everybody out for a while, and said, do you fancy having a chat? Because I think that one day's here. And we had a chat, and then we got the wives together. And in 2012, we established a company called Inter Project Management, and started to... I'd obviously already left the company. Chris was still in the company.
Yeah.
So over those first few months, he then left the company and come and join me, and we started a company called Inter Project Management, which we eventually rebranded to Go True North, and spent 13 years doing two things. We started off when we did the project called it Inter Project Management. We got no idea what we were doing.
It was just literally feeling your way as you go. Like,
this sounds like a good idea. Yeah. We're into project management. It does what it says on the tin. And then we slowly realised that it was a hard field to get into. Every contractor who was delivering services in industry had project manager skills, but we knew the skills were really poor out there because we'd seen it inside. So we were trying to tender for work, and of course when you're tendering, and you've never done a job before.
You've got no live
history.
proof or no, yeah.
And I got this wonderful career behind me, but none of that counted. So we had a real tough 14 months getting going. And one of the things that we'd learnt working together in the power industry, we'd learnt a thing called lean process improvement. We were part of the transformation that I was doing out there when I talked about people, process and plant. The people piece, we were looking at ways to sort of, how can we engage the workforce to start fixing problems for themselves? How can we empower that whole environment? And it was a very, very different environment. And lean became we had some consultants, we put this whole change management program in where part of it was resetting the corporate vision, working with all the leaders, getting a common leadership style, empowering the people to do change. And we got to work with a guy called Alistair Lee, and Alistair, he at the time was running Lean Enterprise Australia, and we got to learn lean and actually not learn lean from a theoretical point of view, practical. We were implementing changes, and
you were there doing it.
And I
learning
remember
it firsthand.
Simple things, Daniel. We had a massive warehouse full of parts, and the thing that was used the most frequently was the PPE that people wanted. It was the furthest away from the counter, and you go, well, why?
You don't even think of I guess once you're there doing it for years and years and years or whatever, it goes unnoticed, doesn't it?
And
you
that's
just do
so
it.
simple problem solving, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? So when Chris and I established Go into project management, which became Go True North, one of the things we wanted to do is have an arm that did project management and an arm that did process improvement. And what happened over those 14 months, we established a little board with the girls, and there we were every month, but there's our projected figures, this is what's gone on, and that's okay for the first few months, but the girls got bored of that when we were 6 months in and we hadn't made any money.
And it was still doing
the
same
projections
thing.
are just moving further and further out. So they started putting the heat on us a bit.
Yeah, you got to be doing something.
And I remember Chris and I had a comment, I said, maybe it's time to go and work for McDonald's or anything, or something, maybe it's that time. And then we got a call from this guy, Alistair Lee, who said, Lean Enterprise Australia have just won a contract with the Australian Tax Office to deliver improvements within the tax office. We're going to run 3 pilot programs and a whole heap of training. We're putting a team together. I've got 3 people. Would you and Chris like to come and join us?
Brilliant.
So we're 18 months in, and we just landed a piece of work where we're going to be exposed to the Australian government and the tax office.
Yeah, it's giving you security for a while, right? It's letting you up for a bit and surrounding yourself with all those brilliant people. So and it's a great testimonial for moving forward.
Amazing. And I was still in contact with those people like Jeff Kelvin, and they'd give us great testimonials from the work we did there. And Chris and I, we ran a number of improvement projects from, improving how the tax office get a letter out, the weeks and weeks and weeks it took we want to write this letter to all our tax people. We have to go through all these layers of bureaucracy and change to get that physically get the letter out, and we optimise that process. I did a lot in the IT space as part of their digital transformation. But over the 3 years, we were worked on in every tax office around Australia, had a wonderful journey. Chris and I personally trained over 2,500 people within the tax office on lean and lean improvement at different levels. Some of that was leadership training, some of it was practical training on lean. And the business started to evolve through that. And then we started to, because we got that sort of, you've worked for the government, we started to get into local government contracts.
It's a good stamp of approval, isn't it, right? A brilliant gateway to work into.
And then we landed a local contract with a local council, and we did some great work in there with a lovely lady, Christine Wright, who was heading up the IT there, doing transformational work. And she took a punt on us. Yes, we'd worked in the tax office, but at the end of the day, we'd not worked in local government. And we started doing that work there. And then the project management side started to start. And we were on a contract with Energy Australia, helping them with their systems and implementing work on the plant. So it was a really, really, really good journey.
No, that's brilliant.
We got to the point where, Chris and I decided, well, what is it that we really want to do? We had a team implementing that job for Energy Australia, And we just said, well, what do we really want to do? And does project management really fit with what we're actually doing today?
Yeah.
And then we realised, and we got, had discussions with different experts in marketing and branding, and realised that, well, maybe it's time to have a bit of a rebrand. And during that same time, the power station that I originally went out there to work with announced closure.
Oh, wow.
This area had got a number of power stations because the coal was just under the ground, and massive open cast mines. But it shocked the government, because the government were playing around with, what are we going to do with carbon? Where's that going to land?
What does the future look like?
And they were putting things out there that would have had like a 400 million impact on a business. And so the businesses were looking at sovereign risk. What do we do? And this was a 50-year-old asset, and they decided to, pull the pin. So what the government did, they reacted very quickly to that, which is, pretty unusual. But they, because they were worried about this area, and this area had been the backbone of cheap energy and driven all the industrialisation that they'd had in Victoria, the government started to put in different schemes so they to try and support the area. So that they built infrastructure. We had a brand new aquatic centre built, new theatre. But for business, they looked at the supply chain, that power station that was closing, and said, well, is there anybody in the supply chain who's got more than 30% of the business at risk? We'll put together a package of support, and that package
a bit of help and stuff.
Yeah, it was.
I guess if that's gone, and then all of a sudden
you're
just ripping out from the other businesses, right?
And it's not about the 1,000 people that work there; it's about the 3,000 other people that are with all these contractors.
Yeah.
So the first part of that program was to do the package they put out was to do a review on a business and come up with a transition plan, and the second part was support for implementing the transition plan. And the state government put out a contract for that. We won a panel of suppliers, and once you're on the panel, every organisation can choose which supplier they wanted to work with. So I said to Chris, well, it's funny, we worked in that asset. I was maintenance manager, you were he was a project manager there. I said, we know all these suppliers. They've got trust with us. Who are they going to come to? If we could get on that panel,
that would be gold, right? Because you're meeting people who used to be there, but in a totally new environment then, right? Like, you've got the authority to actually help them in this case now in a time of need. I mean, you couldn't be put face to face with any better people, really,
That's
could
right.
you?
So here's problem solving 101 on my own business there. How the hell are we going to get on that state government panel? So we went to the state government, did a presentation about what they were trying to do and how you could get on the panel. And there was one of our competitors, a guy called Ryan Leslie, who worked with his wife in a company called Arium, another business consultancy doing great work in the area. And Ryan approached us and we had a chat, and what came out of that is we decided to join forces with a competitor, Ryan, and with another local business, which was an accounting firm, because a big part of this was obviously the government needed to understand the position of the business really well. And we joined a little consortium of 3 contractors, and Ryan headed it under his brand, because we thought his brand was stronger in that business consultancy, because we were more seen as project managers. And, in all fairness to Ryan, he knew that we'd got the contacts inside the industry, so we formed
a bit of a coalition, of a team
put a bid together, and were successful to get on the panel.
That's brilliant.
And that panel included people like Deloitte, KPMG. There's a lot of big boys on the panel, and some smaller consultants. The government then identified 93 organisations that could qualify in that supply chain, and of that 93, I think we picked up just about 40 odd.
Wow.
And over the next 3 years started doing all that kind of work, and that was amazing work, right? Because that was problem solving with businesses that have got a lot of limiting beliefs. They've only ever supplied to the power industry because it's all there.
Yeah.
And then one of the limiting beliefs was, well, we can't go out this area. Geographically, we were 2 hours outside of Melbourne, 12 hours from Sydney if you want to drive there. So geographically, they couldn't think outside of that box. Yet, only 45 minutes up the road was access to all the offshore oil rigs that they'd got out there.
Oh, so like new opportunities
different industry.
and different industries.
So we had an amazing time, you know, and that was very lucrative work that we were doing.
That sounds great as well, because it sounds like a real collaboration between people as well, like people coming together to help people in a time of like business crisis and literally being like, right. And I guess once you start doing it for some of the other ones, you can learn and use those learnings within the other businesses.
Yeah,
as
and
well,
what I
right?
started to learn there, you know, these were businesses that maybe would be getting 2 to 5 to 10 million-ish Aussie dollars in revenue. And what I started to learn there is a lot of these are like mum and dad businesses, and none of them have got any strategic planning. The systems and processes were pretty limited what they'd got, and they were just, you know, doing what they did, doing a great job, but there was no real sort of structure underneath it. It was like
they've been doing
built
it for
on
15
very loose
years,
foundations.
and they just kept doing it for
That's
15
right.
years. Like, yeah.
So we started to look at that, obviously, when we're doing the first piece of work, looking at the business. So we had some diagnostic tools that we developed, and we identified some themes in all of that. And we found ourselves, because we did something really different back then, we decided that rather than using the traditional consultancy model, give me your watch and I'll tell you the time, which was how it was perceived, we decided to put tools in place. So we were a Microsoft partner at the time, and we used SharePoint, and we developed some online tools to gather data from the businesses. So we would sit there basically inputting data through a questionnaire that we did with them on different parts of the business. And we started to collate this data as we started working with more businesses, because we didn't get them all at the same time. You know, it came over time because they had to apply to the government, get through, get funding. It all took time. But we started to collate that data, and then we started to present a picture to the government.
So like, this is actually what's happening. Like, this is how the businesses are doing.
And we found ourselves then presenting to ministers, and that just really built on the brand that we had, and it was really good work. And the work itself was amazing, because you know, there was companies who were at one couple, for example, they're at the end of their career, and they decided, well, it's time to retire then.
Yeah, this is do we want to start this new adventure, or do we just want to?
So we helped them sell their plant and equipment, and we're helping them get a strategy together for
their exit strategy, right, and develop that. That's brilliant.
And then we got other companies who I'm a steel manufacturer, but I love horses. I want to build an equine centre, so we'll.
Wow, it's like a complete switch then, really.
And then there's other companies that were competitors that made more sense to merge to offer a bigger suite of skills and services to a different industry. So we helped some merge.
So
there was a real plethora of things.
So how much learning is that, though? That's like almost like you walk into the office and like, right, what we're dealing with now, like situation.
It was amazing. And then in the middle of all this, and this is the bit that really sparks where I am today, in the middle of all this, there was a lady in the networks, and I can't underestimate how important networking is. There was a lady in some of the networks who owned an IT company, and there was lots of conversations going up about trying to build a startup ecosystem to support the area and bring in innovation. And there were some great innovation hubs in Melbourne, some of them run by the banks and other people. And in the end, our local council, which were the biggest of 6 councils in our sort of area, put out a tender for a startup program, but they combined it with the other councils. So 6 councils basically come together to try and fund a startup program. And we had to look at it, but it was at the time that we got all this other work going on. We had to look at it from a tender point of view and thought, well, it's not very lucrative, but it's about the give back. But have we got the capacity to do it? And in the end, we decided not to do it. But the lady who owned this IT company, she was an ex-Google person. She decided to set up a social enterprise to go and give this a crack. And she reached out to us. Her way of trying to make it more affordable was to get businesses to mentor. Yeah. So Chris and I at the time said, okay, well, what we'll do, we'll give you the equivalent of $50,000 worth of our time to mentor. And Chris and I ended up mentoring 4 businesses through that first cohort, and then that cohort, and it's still going today. The program got bigger and bigger, and lots of businesses come together to support it.
And that was sort of like, so that was supporting new businesses, like that was the entrepreneur sort of side of it.
Yeah,
then. Brilliant.
And then I started to realise I quite like this. You know, this is different business. If I can help a business start up efficiently. And we were using a thing called Lean Startup, which is another sort of toolkit under Lean, which is all about how do you fail fast.
Okay. So
if
like
you've got an idea,
learning quick, failing fast, being efficient.
If you've got an idea
growing.
and it's no good, fail fast, then you're not wasting your money or resources.
Yeah.
Or explore quickly and pivot. You know, so it's
try something for a bit, then quickly try something else for a bit, and then sort of work your way through it rather than just putting all your eggs in and just.
So I've got some lovely stories from that time. I mentored a young lad called Dave Sawyers, who's got his nan and granddad got put into a home, and he went into the bathroom and there's all this drab white plastic furniture in this bathroom. He said, "Well, my nan and granddad have worked all their life. This is just." Terrible that they're like that, and decided to start designing some bathroom furniture out of rose gold.
Oh, wow.
And started to do that, and I'd met him where he'd sort of gone past that and got the idea of, I could make a business out of this. And he was living at the time on his mum and dad's farm in a separate house, and they got an old cow shed, and he was importing steel and bits and pieces from China at the time, and was designing and making product and trying to get that off the ground as a business. Fast forward to a few months ago, and Dave's out here in the UK at the Ideal Homes exhibition at the NEC.
Oh, wow.
And he picks up the phone to me a sort of a month before that, saying, "I'm coming to the UK with his girlfriend and and 2 kids, and could we meet up?" And we met up and shared where his journey's got to.
That's amazing.
And I helped him shape the idea. I helped him shape the finances. I helped him grow in confidence. I took him to a pitch fest and helped him really grow in confidence. And we had an amazing time together. And he went on his own journey, and he got to the point where he needed to scale. So I found a way. I was working at the time for a company who they were a social enterprise and employed people with disability who could help him. And we got him together there and formed a bit of a partnership. He then expanding from that to his own people in his own warehouse. And then he had a pivotal moment in his career where he thought, I love design, but I don't like all the headache that comes with manufacturing people. And he'd managed to get into aged care facilities. And then he landed with one of the big national bathroom suppliers, and started getting his products into there, and
sort of took off and grew.
Yeah, but his pivot become, I really enjoy the design. I don't enjoy all this other stuff.
So he wanted to focus on that a bit.
So he's shifted the business now to a licensed product. So he doesn't make the product anymore. He just licenses it to the national supplier and takes the revenue off the licenses and provides them now with new designs and new ideas.
And I guess sometimes you need that moment or someone to offer that advice to you, because you can get so bogged down in doing it sometimes, and you're just like, I hate doing this, and then someone goes, well, why are you doing it then? Almost, and then it's like,
no, that wasn't my advice. That's he was on his own journey.
Yeah, he figured that one out.
And he figured that one out.
But it must be really rewarding seeing someone who you've literally gone from right to the beginning and seen them grow and develop.
It was amazing.
Seeing that transition.
And to have the chance to catch up with him over here. He was only here for a few days in Birmingham, and I was at the Belfry on a business retreat on a Saturday, and we got the Saturday morning off at the retreat. He'd got the Saturday morning available, and the stars just aligned, and he came over with the kids, and we just caught up, and it was just So I started to go, I like this kind of work. And then circumstances changed, and the family and I decided to move back to the UK 2 years ago, and I was going to semi-retire, and that kind of didn't happen.
So you still had that bit of a hunger in you.
I did, and my wife's a teacher, and she got offered a role that she really, really wanted, a support role, and it was going to be a job share, and then the one lady dropped out and they asked her to go full time, and the compromise became 4 days a week. I went, well, okay, well, I'll work 4 days a week. And
matched her then, basically.
And when I came over here, I'd said to Chris, my business partner, I'll support you over there for a couple of years. When we set that business up right from day one, we had a plan. We engaged our own business mentor back then. And I thought that mentor was going to teach me everything about business. And what he got me and Chris doing different pieces of work on our own and then bringing it together in front of us. And he got us to this piece of work which was visioning the future. And there was me with an office with my name over it in flashing lights. And there was Chris working from home, in an environment. So we were very different.
Yeah.
But what he allowed us to do, he mentored us to a position where we realised we would be really good together, and we realised our boundaries. So when we set up the business, we always had a plan that if I ended up having to come back here for any reason, there was a plan.
There was always an exit plan or a strategy behind it.
Yeah, depending on how that would pan out. And we implemented that a couple of times because my wife ended up over here for 12 months while her father was ill. But anyway, we came back over here, so I decided, part of that plan was to support Chris for a couple of years on the contracts she'd got. So I've spent the last sort of 12 or 18 months doing work for Australia still. But while I've been over here, I've been whizzing around in my head about helping startups and all these businesses I supported. And the biggest problem they were facing out there was, and it's the same here, when you're a young startup, what's the one thing you haven't got? Money.
Yeah, it's the capital to begin with.
And so you can't afford a consultant like me. You can't afford a business coach. Although there's lots of support with growth hubs and other things around there, if you really want to fund somebody to help you on that journey, you can't do it. So I started to come up with the idea of a digital startup academy, and that's where I established Go True North 2 years ago here in the UK. I'm still doing my lean process improvement. Did a beautiful piece up here in Burton with a company recently, but I'm also passionate about startups, and I've developed this online course called Vision to Venture, as you mentioned at the beginning, and I'm passionate. We're just trialling that at the moment with the first cohort, my founding members, but I'm passionate about getting that into education, into schools.
Oh wow, okay. So Vision to Venture has big aspiration, big vision in itself of where it can go to.
I want to change. I've got a young daughter. She's just started her A-levels over here, and I see there's a real push for university with kids in school, or push for apprenticeships. But there's those who've got these entrepreneurial skills. There's no push
for business, really. There isn't.
No. So I've got this
really
idea.
Interesting, actually.
So I've already started having conversations with a few educational people. I'm going to call people because it's a real mixed bag. I'm also really keen about neurodiversity and helping kids learn differently, who have got different learning ways of learning. And so I'm having a lot of conversations that are trying to pull Vision to Venture together as a lot bigger thing, including things like a mindset program in there to help you, because it's a lonely place being a business owner.
And I think almost like the entrepreneurship and the neurodiversity work very much hand in hand, because I feel like a lot of those entrepreneurs are typically people who don't think in the linear sort of regular way, right?
They go at 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think it's important that people like that are nurtured more and are given the support that they need. So I think that's great. I was just thinking back to sort of school then, and literally in an A-level was in sixth form. The only real thing, you're right, it was you go to uni or you do your apprenticeship, and we had this thing called Young Enterprise that was like one small class that no one ever spoke about, and I think the teacher didn't even end up following through with it in the end, but that was it for business. There was nothing else. It's always been something that you have to figure out as you go along. Maybe you can get a business, A-level or something like that, but even still, that's probably preparing you more for the office than actually setting up your own business.
That's right.
Like, it's really interesting.
Well, only 2 weeks ago I sat in front of a class of sixth formers on an academy that's quite forward thinking on this locally in Walsall, and I turned up there, and there was another gentleman who was also, the two of us were presenting. I didn't know I was with anybody at the time, and I turned up, and there's Nathan. Now Nathan is an entrepreneur through and through. He runs tyre and car service garage in Walsall Wood, called Walsall Wood Tyre and Service. It's the only garage I know that's ISO 9001 accredited for quality, and he's got the vision. I want you to have the same feel and service as you get from a dealer, but from me as a smaller organisation. And I met Nathan at an event, another networking event, only to find out he does a lot of podcasting around cars, and before I know it, he's built a podcast. He's got a podcasting studio I didn't know existed. Before I know it, I'm using his podcasting studio, and
that's brilliant.
And he's just a typical entrepreneur. And he got up in front of the kids and he warmed them up, and he did a great job. And then I got up and I gave them 5 tips on starting a business, and we've had some real good feedback for that. And these are the things that just test your idea and thinking.
And that's your rewarding stuff as well, like helping people who genuinely that chat could shape someone's life forever. Like that could be a real crossroads moment for somebody, and that is like super rewarding. That it's hard to match that. Really,
well, you know how hard it is. How did you end up where you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, literally, it was just through trying different things out and through grit and just and giving up on the corporate world as well, basically. So it was definitely a mixed bag, but you have to find it out yourself, don't you? Like that's it, really. So Vision to Venture is obviously your course that you spoke about. And that you're in the process of sort of establishing the founders and really developing it. But ultimately what we really want to get talking about here today is obviously about YouTube, video, and how you used YouTube to find your audience, test out your product, and really get this amazing silver plaque that you've got as well,
which we'll bring out shortly.
Which we'll definitely bring out. Hold on for that. So YouTube for you, how did you get into YouTube? What was your first thoughts around YouTube when you was developing the Vision to Venture idea?
So I was I'd got the idea of this is going to be digital so that I can scale. Right, so it had to be digital, but although I want to run physical programs locally in my own business area, the whole idea was digital. So I'm going, well, I don't know how to sell or market a digital product. I've got no idea.
That's problem number one you've identified.
Correct. So I need to fix that. I'd got no idea around platforms for running courses, so I went and did some research on platforms and looked at lots of different platforms, from School to Circle to Thinkific, just all these different platforms that are out there for learning management systems. But my whole notion was, I don't want just a learning platform, I want to build a community, because I understand from all my experience and the stuff we've talked about, if you get 2 young people together who are establishing a business, they bounce ideas off one another, and if I can build that whole mindset in a community and build a digital community that's got an element of structured learning and a roadmap for success, but brings in support and mentorship, then how good would that be? So I wanted community.
I think that's really fundamental as well, just for sharing ideas, but also from a performance aspect as well, to get visibility on the course and the content you're putting out, right? Having that community means people are sharing you about as well as sharing their own stuff. So
through the research I got on platforms, I came across Thinkific were offering, and it was a paid course on digital marketing for courses. So I thought, well, I'll go do that. So I subscribed to that course and invested some money and went on what was about an 8-week program that was very hands-on and I found it quite confronting. So you would go in, there'd be some slides for you to go through, and then a masterclass on different pieces. And they started right at the beginning talking about, well, it's okay saying you've got this digital product, but who's going to buy it off you? Why are they buying it from you?
Where's the trust and
Correct.
What's the accountability and stuff like that?
And what's the barrier for them paying, whether it's £1 or £500? What's the barrier for them? So in this, I started to share my idea with the mentor, because you've got a mentor in there. And they were suggested to me, well, why don't you build a little YouTube channel, put a few videos out that can somehow get people to understand that they can trust you on business advice. Why don't you give YouTube a go? So that was August last year. I went, well, I have actually got a YouTube channel. It's been around for a while and there's a few videos on it.
This is what I was going to say as well. So was this like you first like ever exploring YouTube, or have you always been in there in the background?
We had it as a business just for hosting videos,
just for having
that we would use in training sessions. So we'd find a good video in a training session, say with Toyota and Lean, and we would download that video and put it in our own YouTube. So with their permission, so we got control of it.
Yeah, just like cloud storage, basically.
Correct.
So you could use it as and when.
the actual channel's been around for a long time, branded a certain way as into project management. So I've got this sort of dormant channel sat there with a few testimonials and stuff on. I thought, well, I don't need to invest in a new channel. I'll just give it a go on there. But then it's like, well, what am I going to do? So I started thinking about that, and I thought, well, what I'd love to do is actually not just me share my advice. I'd like to interview other businesses or young people or people who've got a certain skill set and share their experience in whatever that skill is. So whether that's, if you're building a website as a small business, do you need advice? If you want to learn about networking, Ed, or get into networking, and so I started to hatch this idea, and then I decided, well, I better give it a go. I invested in some lights, and I'd already got a camera, and I found 3 people who I was sort of I'd identified through my networks, and I was sort of giving them a bit of coaching advice in kind. They were all young startups, and I asked them if they would be prepared to, come and sit and share the story. I then hired my local cafe one night, set up the camera, set up the lights facing a window with the sun coming into it.
Classic mistake.
Beautiful settee. Sat them down and did 3 interviews, one after the other. Thought this is all went well. Come to post-production, I was doing it myself. Played the first video and saw Tim disappear as the sun come in and then come back. And then spent hours and hours trying to edit that video to make it out, try and make it look something. And it still doesn't look something. It's still on the channel today. They still don't look amazing compared to what I'm doing today.
It's always good to see what you started and where you are now, though, right? It's a good reminder. And I think you're thinking as well, going through it, like going down to deciding what kind of content you wanted to do fit in really well with the business as well, because you wanted that community and you were developing a community by bringing people on and forming a community that way as well. So I think you really identified exactly what you needed to do right from the get-go, right? And you just went out and did it. Like, that's a huge barrier. Just not stopping yourself can be a big barrier, and you just went out, bought the stuff and got it done. With it. Yeah,
and what I do today is very different to what I did then, but it's just that was all my learning, and I've pivoted and moved and pivoted and moved and it's all part of the learning. And so I basically did an interview around 5 questions. So I would come up with 5 questions. So Sophie in Serrano, who in Serrano Media, she's into marketing and branding.
Yeah.
So I just put 5 sort of questions together, and my frame of all this when I was doing it is I want a win for the audience I'm talking to, I want a win for the person who is delivering the content, and I want a win for the channel or for my trust, because it was all about trust then. So I went in with this win-win-win concept, which I do with everything, and it gave Sophie a chance to promote what she does, and Tim, who did the other one, and Murdad. It gave them all a chance, and then I just released one video and started from there. Really
started moving it from there. And do you know what? And I think that it's having that win-win-win mindset and sort of like that structure is perfect for podcasting, and why a lot of businesses should really start looking more into podcasting anyway, because it helps you out, it helps the guest out, it helps your community out. And if that sort of synergy, if you can keep on replicating that over and over again, you are going to start to build something really great.
And look at the value you can create for everybody. It is amazing. And look, I did this for 8 weeks to begin with, and the problem I had is I didn't know what good looked like, and I got no idea. Clearly, I watched things like Steve Bartlett and
all the big guys and stuff like that.
You watch them, but I don't know what good looks like, and I start seeing the figures on the channel, and I thought, well, I like this, but I don't know, am I doing any good? I remember I sat in a Costa Cafe over in Lichfield, chatting to a guy he was Murdad, he does AI. He's got a marketing tool for marketing. It's called Sway, and it's basically a tool that uses AI to find smart ways of marketing you and controlling advertising costs and getting it really slick.
Okay. Like attribution and things like that, budget to attribution.
And he's got a whole software tool now that can create quizzes and landing pages, all with a goal to marketing you well.
Awesome.
And I remember I started showing him what the channel was doing, and at the time it was at 16,000 views, and he went, "That's amazing, Neil. The traction that's got is amazing."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know. I'd got no idea what good looked like, and really I started from that point on realising that there's actually something in this, and this then became more about less about a trust war and more about honing my skills at testing the audience and understanding who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
So the analytics started to play an important part to me, because whilst if I'm going to market a digital course on startups, which is why what I was thinking about at the time with the YouTube channel and the advice from Thinkific, I've got to understand the audience I'm talking to. Are these young kids? Are the people my age who have just got enough money and have never been happy in corporate and want to set up a project? Is it people who are doing side hustles? Who are these people who are watching, and where are they? Because I put no constraints on in terms of location. It was pushing out to...
It could have gone to all over, yeah.
So I then started looking at the data and starting to get a good feel for the audience. So I started to see this YouTube channel, whilst it is creating the trust and adding value, it's also helping me on the decision making for where I take Vision to Venture. So I'm going to keep it going, and I committed to keeping it going for 12 months in my mind. And I was on a business startup course at the Greater Birmingham Business Chamber, and there's a lady there called Jane who runs the program, and I'm there with my cohort, and they're talking about different things, and I made a statement that I'm going to get 1 million views in a year. No, that
was your challenge you set out. You made it public then, so you had to follow it through.
I'm one of these people who's very, very driven. You know,
yeah.
You give me a job to do and I'll go do it. And I've done that whether it's working as in charities like Lions over in Australia, which I did. I'm extremely driven at what I do, and people who know me know that. So it then became a bit of a mission to... In my mind, I'd set this way off target that I thought never ever reach. I never expected to reach it. I thought if I get to 100,000 views,
that'd be great.
By the end of the 12 months, it's proof of concept. It's kind of like it became my minimum viable product. It's my minimum product for testing whether my advice is going to hit, and whether I can build a digital program around it. And that's how it all started.
And that's it. Yeah, basically developing that channel, finding those views and developing that audience, and then once you've developed it, you can start to think about, okay, what will these people want to purchase? What's the next level for the course? How does that sort of look? Because I guess if you go in straight with the product level, you've almost then got to sort of fish around and do a lot of work finding it, rather than establishing that audience first, right? And then catering it to that audience.
So it was always about the audience, and still is today. Right? Because I think it's the most important thing. We chatted earlier about algorithms and things. You can just... Yes, there's an algorithm. Yes, that algorithm links to YouTube's vision to give you the right video that you want to see when you want to see it. That's their vision, is to be able to do that. And clearly for them to deliver that vision, they've got to have technology and algorithms that do that. But for me, it was all about... I want to make sure I'm talking to the right audience, making sure that they're getting value out of it, and making sure I understand who's looking to help me position the course in the future. And it became all about feeding the audience value. And there's a lot of tricks and tips, and I've learned a lot about YouTube, and still even this week, I've had a bit of a aha moment about some stuff.
It's always a learning curve. There's always new things to explore, definitely.
And today, I'm able to subscribe to other tools that help me, and some of their research and analytics has really helped me think about where I'm, like vidIQ, for example. But it's like that journey of learning has really helped me figure out where that course is going to position itself, and I think that's the most important thing. You feed the audience value, and the rest will come.
Definitely, yeah. Put value out there. That I think putting value out there is the most essential thing about building an audience and starting sort of a content marketing strategy, because like you said before, it's that social proof, it's that trust wall.
Yep.
People understand who you are, you're establishing your credibility. People can absorb so much more about you through video than other forms of media as well. But then ultimately, by putting stuff out there, finding something that people are interested in, and then thinking, how can I begin to adapt this and turn it into a little bit of revenue.
And telling real business stories, right? I did one last. I'm in a training academy around being able to close sales with a guy called Matt Elwell, and he's got an amazing community. And I was lucky enough to interview two people last week, Lucy and Michael, about their estate agency franchise. And it was a late night in the studio recording this one, because they'd been all day at the academy.
Yeah.
And then we went and had some tea, and then went in and did the recording. And it was laughter, it was raw emotions, there were tears.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat thinking about that on the drive home, going, that's exactly what business is. It has its highs, its lows, and it was so real, telling their story.
Yeah.
So I'm now getting more out of the storytelling because those stories come with so much emotion, and they really connect to the audience.
Definitely.
And that, to me, is the bit that then gets the value.
Not only do you get better conversation out of people when it's real, people perceive it a lot better, but it's just people crave authenticity when they're looking online at the moment, right? And it sort of loops back to a little bit of where you didn't know what quality looked like either. Obviously, you knew about Stephen Bartlett and stuff, but then that comes into your content as well, because it's kind of like nowadays the barrier is so much more lower, because people want something fresh and new. They don't want polished. They don't want everything to look, as perfect as it is. That people want something raw, real, that they can relate to and they can understand as well. So it's so much easier now more than ever to get started.
And I say that to everyone I interview, because how many takes we're going to have? I said, it don't matter. I just want to have a conversation, and we'll only cut stuff out if you fall apart. If we're just having a conversation, everything's fine. It's just going to be what it's going to be.
It's just a chat, that's all
it's
it is.
It's no different if we were down the pub and somebody was watching us. It's real and authentic.
The amount of times as well that if I was down the pub with my mates, I wish I could just record what was going on, because that could be a whole podcast in itself, right? But unfortunately, when you bring in all the cameras and the lights and stuff, it will just
quite the same.
It got us not quite the same. But it is just raw. The best conversations happen, so many brilliant conversations happen in a day, and they're just not captured, and they would be incredible to put out there. So I think just by more people getting involved, there's just more ideas floating around. It just generates such a better community.
And I interviewed a lady. This is so easy. I interviewed a lady called Sarah Rhodes. Right, she's a young mum of three, and she runs a networking business called the Best of Warsaw. And they got 300 businesses in that network that they support. And I said, would you go on the channel? And she was happy to do that. And I interviewed her, and the slant of the interview was all about how the hell does she manage. Her husband's a HGV driver, so he's out early. She's left with the 3 kids every day, getting them to school run. And then she's running a massive networking business that does events and all this stuff. And the angle that I went on was, this is a real business that you're running. And you're a mum of 3, there's lots of people who could connect with this. How on earth do you manage that? And we did this whole interview, and it was just a beautiful interview. Really, I just felt it when I was there. And there was one piece when she was talking about the importance of networking and the importance of Google reviews, right? And I had off that video that many comments saying, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense. Why have I never thought about this?"
Like it connects up, just hearing
like,
it connects it all up, doesn't it?
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So today it's more about making sure that I am getting that engagement out of what I'm doing and making sure I'm hitting the mark. And every podcast and interview I do is different, and I'm trying to angle them all with different, because there's a lot of people I've come to realise who are in existing businesses as well. So the couple I interviewed last week who are experts, elite at what they do in the estate agency world, there must be so many estate agents who could learn from their story.
They want to understand their story, or someone, like even linking back to the programme, someone who wants to set up their own estate agency, right? It's going to inspire people and get people all thinking in that direction, which is exactly what you want to do when you're putting out content.
And now I'm getting lots and lots of people leaning into me, wanting to come on the channel because they can see the value it can add to them and their business and their message. But I need to be a bit cautious as well to make sure that I am adding value and I'm still being authentic to what I'm trying to do, which is to help startups.
Because there's going to be a lot of people in that audience that want the help. And sometimes, you can go on a bit of a tangent and a snowball going in a certain direction. But again, it's just looking back at that demographics. Are people still engaging with each guest? Okay, maybe this was a little bit of a different episode. People have engaged less. Let's pivot back again and optimising with every post, right? Just keeping on that journey.
And even like the journey I've been on, not just on the YouTube channel, but on then how do I promote the YouTube channel through shorts and other stuff. That's been a whole learning in the social media world on its own.
100%. You mentioned a little bit earlier about how much of a driven person you are, and how once you've got something, you set your mind to it. How did you keep up with the consistency of the channel and keep that drive and that momentum up through growing your channel to 100,000 subscribers?
Well, I've got a different view on how I need to do it from here on in to how I've done it so far, but how I've done it so far has got me to where I am. And I'm not putting out a video every week. I was putting out a video every month. So I'd only do one video per month, although when you look at the channel, some of them, there's 2 land in the month just from the timing of when people are available. So it wasn't about pushing out lots of content. It was more about making sure that the quality's right. So I spent a lot of time making sure I got the right people, making sure I got the right interview questions, and making sure that the post-production's hitting the message. So I've spent more time on that than just producing video, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's paid off.
More time on the planning and the post-production than actually in there in the studio doing
and like even from, the video I did for me on my testimonial, I learned a lot from that about what you do to plan and prepare for that. And I know that's a lot, it's different because you were doing interview after interview after interview there, it's very different. It's the planning that's actually quite important to all of this.
The questions that you ask, and almost learning about, if you ask someone a question, what is their answer going to be, thinking about that ahead of time so you can sort of start to guide it in a certain narrative and you stay on track. Because you could put a camera up as well sometimes, have a chat, and you could talk for like 2-3 hours, and then you've gone on a complete tangent, right? And it might be a good chat for you, but it's like, does it still hold that value that it originally set out to get?
I've actually changed my planning now from asking them about 5 questions. So now the plan is in 4 phases.
Okay.
And those phases match the phase of my startup course. So the first phase of my startup course is all about define and discover. What's the problem you're trying to solve? Who you're trying to solve it for? What's your solution and what's unique about you? So I frame questions that draw that topic out, and then so they all flow now around the sort of the framework of my startup course. I've got a roadmap there with 12 modules that takes you from nothing to getting your first customer, and it's framed around that. So it kind of links now to, because when I started, whilst I got the startup idea, and I'd got a broad framework for what the roadmap might look like. It's not until I actually built that course this year that actually came to life.
How much it was like set in stone, but I guess now you're structuring it to match the course. You're not only promoting the course in that way, but you're also generating content for each specific aspect of the course. So if you wanted to put out a short that was just about, the first
Customer
thing to
discovery.
discovery, for example, you've got that there ready to go. And I think as a content creator, you really have to get used to repeating yourself a lot as well, because it's like what one person might see in one video, they might not see in 6 episodes time, right? It might be two different people.
That's right.
So you have to get used to saying that same message over and over again, repeating yourself, and keep on putting it out there, and that consistency hopefully solidifies it a bit.
If there's budding podcasters out there, I was nervous about going in front of the camera. I did not want to go in front of the camera, right? And I'm quite an extroverted person. My character, I'm pretty dominant in my profile. I'm pretty out there.
Yeah.
But I don't like being in front of the camera.
I've noticed a lot of people have that. They'll be a completely different person as well. Like some people are super confident, will do public speaking. As soon as you turn a camera on, they don't. That's it. Yeah. They're gone. So it's really interesting.
I now see it because I've interviewed a lot of people now, and I've seen people who are different. They're in a different position when they interview. Some are super nervous, some aren't, and I'm quite happy here, sat in front of you with cameras and just having a conversation as if I was down the pub.
It's a skill, though, right? You have to learn to just.
And it's a learning, and I think anyone can learn it.
Yeah.
Anybody could learn it, and it might take some longer than others, and you might fall over and bang the microphone or
not the microphone
or whatever.
But
you learn, don't you?
No, definitely.
It's just it's one of if you're persistent, I think that will help you pay off. And if you're purposeful, so the purpose, being clear about the purpose of why we're sat here having the chat, being clear about that purpose, and if you keep being persistent at it and be professional at what you do, those three things will drive.
I think that's a great piece of advice, and it's a good way to get into that habit of being consistent with it as well. And just going back to what you said before about the drive, and that you weren't posting 15 times a day or something like that. You did what was manageable for you, so you weren't overshooting your shot, right? You were just putting out there what was right for you. It wasn't exhausting all your resources, and it was just the perfect amount.
And 3 months ago, I shifted to doing. So what I would do is I'd do the interview. They were sort of 15, 20-minute interviews, and I've sort of tried to keep it at that. Although, some of them, the one I did last week, the estate agents, that'll be a bit longer. There was 2 people there, and it was a bit more conversation. But I've only been putting them up on YouTube, then promoting them out on my socials. As a long form, and just left it at that. But sort of 2 or 3 months ago, I shifted to using shorts and got a bit of technology that cuts those videos up and is pretty good at cutting them up into shorts, and then helping look at those shorts and how those shorts can, tell the story you're trying to tell. What I'm currently doing, I'm just looking at how I can bring several shorts together to say a certain thing about a part of the topic. So I've started. My journey on learning on YouTube has been one of self-learned, but I've done a lot of reading, and I still not got it right. If my purpose has never been to monetize the channel, it's always about giving the value. But I watch all the data and try to understand what the data's telling me. Why did the watch time drop off on that video? What was it? Why did I only get 10 minutes through and it's gone?
Figuring out, making those optimizations, trying again, showing up again. And you know what? Social media and YouTube moves so quickly now. Yeah. Even if one video is a flop, you can't let that put you down, because everyone's forgot about it next week anyway. So you just you can try again, and you can. And then
I've had one short that did 400,000 views.
That's amazing.
But that was also an interesting journey, because that particular one said a good message for my client, and they used that one in their socials, and they've got a really high domain authority, and it just took.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I've learned recently is you don't know what's actually going to drive. You get one like that, and suddenly bang. You know,
it's going, and then the next one completely flops, and you get 10
one,
views, and then the next one.
That one video took me from just shy of 700,000 views to over 1 million views,
That's
brilliant. It was a short,
and that hit your goal for the year. Then
that's right. It just did it, and I never knew it would do it. So now I'm starting to go, well, when I get these shorts, so when I cut this up. I obviously get the raw video, I get the post-production, and then I cut the shorts, and I put them all inside I use Microsoft, inside of a Microsoft Teams folder, and I give the person I'm interviewing access to all of that content and say, go download it and you can use it and make it yours. The shorts have all got my logo on. If you want to create your own shorts, this is the software that I use.
You just go out there, put it out there yourself.
Yeah.
And I do that as well with the people who I work with. I'm just like, here's the raw thing. Do you want me to cut it up? Let me know. If you want, do what you want with it, because it's visibility, and then it's just putting it out there, isn't it? Adding that value as much as possible.
Yeah, and they posted that one video on their network, and they were part of a big network, and it just took off, and it was just one little piece about the importance of networking. And it was just a piece of gold dust in the middle of a 20-minute interview.
I'm so happy that I'm super happy that you've found success in it, and that you've gone on this journey, because it's interesting to see from a bystander looking in as well. It's interesting to hear your story about it. But I think it's time we do have a look at the plaque.
Oh,
so have you got it down there with you?
I have indeed.
And for anyone who doesn't know, so this is a YouTuber plaque. So they're quite popular. Obviously, this is Go True North. It's really reflective, so I bet you can probably see yourself now in the camera, actually. But obviously, Go True North.
You can hold it if you want.
I'm going to hold it as well. I literally, even as a kid, you see these things, and you always, I always wanted to be a YouTuber as a kid. It was something that I always wanted to, strive to be. But having this right here now is actually it's a bit of history, and it's a huge pat on the back, right? Because you've gone through all of that effort of putting it out there, showing up, giving value to audience. So I think it is great that YouTube give you a little bit of a pat on the back, and you can also have it in your videos. And I bet you've got it hanging in the back of your content and stuff like that.
What's really interesting,
it would look quite good there, actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Just there,
on that
camera. What's really interesting, obviously we talk about what I do as a family at the dinner table, and the family are bored stupid about what I do, right? And I've actually got a ticker on my back wall in the office that ticks up. It switches between views and subscribers.
Oh, okay.
Right, and it's been there since probably September of last year. And that my daughter will come in and look at it now and again, and never say anything about it. Never, I always bait her up saying, "I want to get you have an interview with me." And she won't. And it's always been a bit of a standing joke between us, hearing the ticker going off all day, and it actually went over 1 million views, and that plaque's for getting 100,000 subscribers,
isn't it? Yeah.
Which apparently that's only 1% of YouTubers get to that number.
It's it's crazy because as well, most podcasts even don't make it past the 20th or 10th episode, right? So the amount of content that people put out there, no one sticks at it, do they? So it's a great achievement to have something like that. I'll give you this back before it does go missing.
So my daughter, when I actually went over 1 million views, which was a bit of a moment. I was actually, because I'm in my little office. It's just a 2 metre square office, but I've got 4 monitors because I do a lot of live streaming or live masterclasses, and I've got a camera there, and I'm chatting, having a partnership meeting with this Irish lad, and the ticker goes, he went, "Neil, look behind you," because he could see the ticker. I could see it, but I got my back to it. And I looked around, it went over the 1 million, and it was a bit of a moment while we were on the call, and the call was recording, so I used that as a bit of social.
Oh, that's brilliant. That'd be a good little short to put out there, wasn't it? The moment it
But that night, my daughter came in and just looked at it, because she knew we were getting close, obviously, and she went, "I'm so proud of you, Dad. Well done." And that really hit me more than getting the plaque, that just because it's... You realise what a massive achievement it actually is.
And that's coming from the people who you love the most, and having that sort of connection there, that's.
But there's been a lot, people are always asking me, well, what's the secret recipe, and it's the stuff we chatted about, Dan. The secret recipes. Don't forget your audience; they're number one.
Yeah, focus.
Don't worry about the algorithm. And I've tried a lot of things. So I've started off by just putting long form out. Now I'm cutting short form out to promote it through TikTok and other channels. I've discovered, the importance of titles, description, and thumbnails. They are so important because you've got 2 or 3 seconds for someone to see that and go, that's interesting.
Yeah, that 3-second window is super important, especially like thumbnails. People really overlook it, not using hooks, things like that. But yeah, super important.
So now I'm actually using a bit of AI technology. So I use NA10, which is a workflow platform, and I put a video up and NA10 sees that video, and I've trained a couple of models. One model is an agent to go off and look at keyword research for me, relevant to the video. So it strips the transcript of the video and uses that for keyword research. There's another agent that then goes off, and I've taught that. It's learned from my Vision to Venture course, so it's had all the material for that. But then I've taught it to take that transcript then and create 2 titles. And I have a title that is curiosity driven, to capture people in those first few days of the video going. And because I always get a spike the first few days. And then I have the automation then waits for 72 hours and then it flips it out with a title that's more SEO driven, that gives it a bit more longevity. So
that's brilliant.
So, but that's been a bit of a dodgy journey because it's put some titles up that don't represent what's in the video.
Yeah.
So that it's
all a learning curve, right? Experimentation.
That's right. So I've got that going, and then same with the thumbnails. Now I use AI again, has been trained on always putting my logo down the bottom of a thumbnail. I want my thumbnails in this brand. It has to have this tone of voice in terms of any words you put on there. So I've trained this to put thumbnails on, but I'm not sure. I'm still learning yet. I'm still not convinced that the AI-generated thumbnails are the way to go. I think people want to see your face and get more connection with it. Yeah, you can have the shocking statement on that you're trying to hook them with, but
you want to see it. You want to look. I always think that thumbnails should always help to tell the story, right? They should be in partnership with the title because people will see the thumbnail first and then read the title afterwards.
Yeah.
So how can you condense as much of that story into a thumbnail as possible and still grab someone's attention?
And then because I've been what I've been doing with my podcast, because I didn't want to just grow organic growth, I wanted to really push it. I started to use a bit of advertising using Google Ads. So I would get a video and a few shorts, put them together in a Google ad, package up in a Google ad, and I've left the Google ads wide open across the world, so I haven't changed the logo. And that's not quite true. I have done some specifically for the UK as well, because I decided, well, I've got the analytics data in YouTube. Let's get some analytics data using Google ads. So I started using Google ads, only £5 a day, for 14 days when I launched the video, and it just give it a kick and pushed it and
how
pushed
people
it along.
Responded and things like that.
Yeah, and that I've got all that data, and that is correlating perfectly with the YouTube data. It's the same demographic. I can tell you, 18 to 35 is the demographic. The sweet spot is 24 to 35. That I know. Male and female have been running around 50-50, but it started to shift 70-30 recently. And I don't know why that is, because I've had more females on recently, so whether it's pushing the male demographic up a bit higher. So understanding these things are all important, aren't they? Because
that will represent what content that you make, how the course goes, all basing it off that.
But then I've also been, and I haven't decided whether I'm going to monetize the channel yet, and you might kick me and say that's stupid, but I might want ads on my channel, I don't know. But then I've looked at the monetization, and to get to the top level of monetization, I'm hitting the target for how many videos I'm putting out there. Clearly, I've got the target for subscribers, but one of the targets is watched hours. Now, those watched hours, when I look at my channel, outside of the monetization, my watched hours are at 6,000 hours. Yet in the monetization, which the data there runs about a week behind, because YouTube sanitise the watch hours, and included in there are only certain things, so that your shorts don't get included in those watch hours.
They start taking bits out and making it harder and harder. Yeah.
And I found out only 2 days ago when I was chatting with my AI guy who helps me, and we did a bit of research on trying to understand why the watch hours are significantly different, because I've got 6,000 over here and only almost 1,000 over in the earned part. And I'm going, I don't understand this. What? It can't be that far out. But it turns out that if you advertise your YouTube, the advertising watch hours, so if someone clicks an advert and watches your YouTube from an advert, it don't count. So, if that helps anybody who's thinking of monetising your channel, actually doing the advertising, whilst the advertising's helped me get some of the growth and the subscribers, it's actually been counterintuitive to getting those 4,000 hours over 12 months.
But none of this information is like typically easy to find either, though, right?
No.
It's the kind of thing that you only find by doing it and getting stuck in.
By looking at two numbers and going, why don't they match?
They don't match up.
Google, help me, why don't these match?
And Google definitely don't put out a 101 guide on how to do things or anything.
We had to dig deep to find that out.
Definitely.
So look, if you are thinking of monetising a channel, it's going to be hard work. But I know of people who've monetised a channel with only 3,000 subscribers. So it's about, again, the audience, the content, and what you put.
The kind of audience you've built. Are they going to respond well to ads and things like that?
So my strategy now going forward is carry on doing the things that I'm doing with the AI and the titles and all that good stuff that's left me in a good position. I was actually listening to a podcast the other day from vidIQ talking about don't put emojis and icons on long form video, but put them on short
form. Okay.
They'd analysed something like 25 million videos, and this was their pricey of all. This was their pricey of all that. So I'm trying to build all these. Every time I watch something and learn a bit, I try and build it into my AI model, so I don't have to think about it.
And that's what it's about: learning off people who have been there, people who've done it, adapting, changing, and try it for yourself. Well, I'm really pleased for you that you've got your plaque. I think it's a great achievement. And like I said before, it's great to see
I'll
your
come
journey.
back when you get yours and we'll share it too.
We can put them next to each other then, and we can have a little plaque meet up. But thank you so much for coming on and speaking to me. You honestly do have it's such a cool, interesting story. I feel like I could prick your brain for like hours and hours and hours, especially about Australia as well.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, definitely. So super interesting. Is there anything let me just start that bit again. Is there anything that you'd like to put out there to the audience before we sign off?
I would say if you're starting a YouTube channel, just be brave and give it a go and learn. Don't be scared to fall over. And, if you're worried about what people will say, don't.
I think that's a sound bit of advice. I think you've just got to get started, right?
Just give it a go.
Give it a go.
Lean into your fear. If you're fearful of a camera, just lean into it and give it a go. It's certainly it's made some great inroads for me. It's definitely the startup idea of I need a trust wall. Well, it's well and truly done that now. I know that because the people who are leading to me saying, "Can I come on your channel?" These are people who are
starting to take effect now, and it's building up.
Yeah, and I don't know where it's going to go. I'll probably pivot a bit and got some other ideas for doing content different to just doing the interviews. I want to actually get out in business and do some content.
Brilliant.
But that will come with time.
No, definitely, and I'm definitely 100% sure that someone listening to this conversation is going to take home something valuable and continue on their journey. So I told you it was going to be valuable. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much again, Neil, for coming on. It's been a great chat. Obviously, as always, we like to take the conversation online, so hit me up on LinkedIn and add Neil as well, and we'll answer any more questions that you've got on there. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. See you later. Awesome. Cool. We did it. That was so cool. Thank you so much, Neil.